Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Sunday night is Organ Music Night. Excuse me for the late start to this evening. This microphone was not putting out a signal, so I had to go and change it and play around with it. And now I think it's putting out too much signal. So let me quickly adjust that a tiny bit. Is that better? Better. Yeah, that's better. Good. All right, let's have some of that. Splendid. Yes, that was a wonderful piece of music made famous by Thomas Fats Waller. That was My Very Good Friend, the Milkman. Do you know the words to that? My very good friend, the milkman, says that I've been losing too much sleep. He doesn't like the hours I keep, and he suggests that you should marry me. I'm sure you know what that's all about. This evening, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be talking about the wonderful world of Mr. Thomas Fats Waller, and I need to turn the camera just a tiny bit because I'm not in frame. That's better. And we've lost a broccoli. So let's pop him back up there. It's live with all the nonsense that doesn't work when it's not live. You can't see half of the cauliflower, but that's fine because I hate cauliflower. So that's absolutely fine. Right. An evening of music by Thomas Fats Waller. So called because he was kind of porky in all directions. And in those days you were allowed to say things like that. So that was our friend Mr. Fats Waller. Wonderful guy. Sadly died of pneumonia at a very early age. He was only 39. Can you believe it? He was only 39 and he left us. What an absolute terrible shame. Now, Thomas Fats Waller left us with thousands, literally thousands of compositions. Obviously, I'm not going to play all of those tonight. I am going to play quite a lot, though. And he was one of the first, in fact, he was the first jazz organist to become even remotely well known. He was a pioneer, believe it or not, in the early 40s of the legendary Hammond organ. If we have time tonight, I will swap this not just for a theatre organ, but also for a Hammond organ. Mr. Hammond himself was actually very close friends with Fats Waller. And just wherever Fats Waller went, he provided a Hammond organ for him to sit and play, to push these things. And Fats even composed a piece of music quite late in life. He died in 1943, and I think 1942 he composed a piece of music especially for the Hammond organ, the Jitterbug Waltz. If we have time for that, we'll have some of that later on this evening. Let's get the show rolling then with Fats Waller's, one of his most famous piano compositions. Now, we're not talking his songs, these are his piano compositions. Fats was an amazing piano player. He could, I'm not going to be doing too much stretching tonight for obvious reasons. He could stretch, that's, you know, his left hand was always doing tenths, that kind of thing. And his right hand would occasionally do 11ths. You know, that kind of thing. A B flat at the bottom and E flat at the top, all in one hand. You know, that's pretty good. That's pretty good going. He had huge hands, and he was a large gentleman in all directions, shall we say, including digitally. But that didn't stop him being one of the most powerful and amazing piano players there ever was. Back in the day, you would have something called a cutting contest. And the idea was all these famous Harlem piano players would get together in somebody's apartment. They would have rent parties. You would invite all these famous piano players to come. Everyone had a piano in their flat in those days, don't forget, in their apartment. And all these piano players would try to outplay each other in what they then called cutting contests. People would pay entry to get into these parties. The musicians would be paid. There would be lots of alcohol, even though it was technically prohibited. There would be lots to eat. There would be dancing. There would be jiving. There would be boys and girls aplenty doing all the things they used to do in certain establishments, even if it's private. And all these cutting contests, all these piano players had their own fancy pieces of music they composed for them. And Fats Waller's first one was this, A Handful of Keys. A Handful of Keys by Thomas Fats Waller. All good fun. Nice easy stuff to play in the key of F. It's not, none of this is as difficult as it looks. I'm giving my secrets away here. But it's all good fun, and it works beautifully on an organ because he himself, let's not forget, was an organist. Now, he composed a lot of music, or not composed, sorry, he performed a lot of music on the organ, and we have a couple of these tonight. This is all in alphabetical order. He even formed a group. He formed a band with his old piano teacher, Mr. James P. Johnson, and a couple of others. There was a clarinet player, a saxophone player, I think they doubled, and there was a trumpet player, and they had great fun recording a few numbers in an old church out in New Jersey, where Fats played regularly. There was a studio, there was a church, there was a lovely organ there. It was a kind of theatre organ. It wasn't quite a theatre organ, but it was kind of a theatre organ. And Fats recorded these tunes together with this wonderful band. They called themselves the Louisiana Sugar Babes, which is horrendously politically incorrect nowadays, but back in those days you could do that kind of thing. There you are, we've got Julian G.C. from Louisiana tonight. So there you are, let's dedicate this one to Julian G.C. then. In fact, we'll also dedicate it to Robert Varner, because I know he lives up in New Jersey, and this is where the church was, just across the water from Manhattan in New Jersey. This is where this church was. I can't remember the name of the church now either, but never mind. But it became very, very famous because they performed these recordings there. There were all sorts of them. They were all wonderful. There are various takes of every single piece of music they did, and you can hear how they sort of fine-tuned the arrangements as they went along, but it was absolutely wonderful. The combination of Fats Waller at the organ, James P. Johnson at the piano is absolutely amazing. And actually, one of these days, I must sit down and do a recording of one of those pieces of music. Once my thumb has fully recovered. You may notice this evening, I'm trying not to use my thumb when I'm playing, my left thumb. It's kind of difficult, but I'm kind of getting there. Anyway, enough chat. Here's a wonderful piece of music. It's a sort of bluesy number. Fats himself wrote this back in 1928, I think. It's called Willow Tree. Starts out in B flat minor and then thankfully moves to B flat major. Nice, 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 nice. Willow Tree, a lovely old bluesy number there. Fats Waller himself, gorgeous arrangements of that. He recorded it on solo organ as well. Now, if you want to do that, I'm giving you some trade secrets here. If you want to do Fats Waller style when you're playing the organ, it's quite simple. You just power along. Now, Fats Waller had various different ways of playing the organ. There's a nice sort of style he would play, quite slow music. Let's choose just any old bluesy sort of number for this. I don't know, let's say Basin Street Blues. And what he would do, he would have very, very short, but it would be identical. So the pedals downstairs, if you watch my left foot down there, would be doing short staccato stuff with the left hand together. And maybe there would be a sort of counter melody in the left hand, or in the right hand maybe. I'm doing it in the right hand tonight for obvious reasons. That's one of his techniques that he would use. Now, the other one is the sort of the bopping. All right, Tom was a bopper, definitely a bopper, and everything's quite heavy at this point. Nice heavy pedal, yeah. Now, I mean, the guy he was like, you know, it was 150 kilos of Thomas Fats Waller at least. There was a lot of him, and you know, there was none of these sort of fancy fast pedal work, yeah. And he had huge feet as well, so you know, it was all sort of very heavy going. I've got UK size 9s, which I think is 43 in European, which is, I don't know, 410 in American. I honestly don't know what the Americans have for feet sizes. These are not big feet by today's standards, but Fats had huge, enormous feet, and probably very wide as well. He was a big guy. So, you know, intricate pedal work was not his thing. So when he was playing something like, I don't know, Ain't Misbehaving perhaps, it would have been quite ploddy, as a nice word to put it. Ploddy. Sounds like a nice word, doesn't it? He would have plodded along quite nicely, but the rhythm was always there. To this day, I am convinced that the plodding style of Fats Waller at the organ is what influenced Errol Garner and his left hand. Now, Errol Garner himself, believe it or not, Errol Garner himself also played jazz at the organ, and he actually started out as an organist before he turned to piano. Not a lot of people know that, as Michael Caine might have said. That was not a Michael Caine impression, good God, no. That's one impression I can't do for some reason. He started out life as a jazz organist, and chances are he loved the music of Fats Waller at the organ. So he had this sort of chum, 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 chum. A lot of people think it's because of the Count Basie guitar guy, Freddie Green, chung, chung, in the Count Basie band. That's not true, because Freddie Green didn't join the Basie band until slightly, well, not with this style, until slightly later. Errol Garner was already doing his thing at that point. So that doesn't tie in, historically speaking. Anyway, let's do some Ain't Misbehaving, Fats Waller's most famous composition. Do we need the verse? Shall we play the verse? Yes, I need the music for the verse. Can't remember the verse. It modulates from E flat immediately to E, my least favorite key. harp at the bottom there. Ain't Misbehaving there, in a variety of tempos and keys. I love that tune. It's one of my favourite old tunes. My great uncle George taught me to play that tune at a very, very early age. He was a bit of a jazz piano player and accordionist back in Scotland in the day, Uncle George. He was my grandmother's twin brother. They were the Bell twins back in the 1920s in Inverness. Very famous children musicians. My grandmother would sit at the piano and accompany Uncle George, or her twin brother, on the fiddle, on the violin, and they played a mixture of both classical stuff and Scottish stuff. And they were so good, they were invited to go to the Royal Academy or the Royal College or whatever it was in London in those days. They were invited to go there and study music. But they didn't go. Inverness in those days was very rural and very provincial, and I suspect my great-grandparents at the time were probably quite worried about what might have happened back in the United Kingdom in those days. Why are you all talking about foot sizes? You're all a bunch of foot fetishists tonight, by the looks of it. Can we talk about music instead, ladies and gentlemen? Yeah, and a bizarre claim to fame is my Uncle George, saved up to go and see Fats Waller perform at the Playhouse in Edinburgh when Fats Waller was on tour in the United Kingdom. He played in Edinburgh in the Playhouse Theatre, and Uncle George went to see him and remarked at the size of his hands. It was like someone hiding bananas. He said his fingers were just enormous, but watching him play the piano, it was just unbelievable. Crazy stuff. So that's kind of my direct connection to Fats Waller there. It's even a family one. That's not bad, is it? That's not bad. That's not bad at all. Now, Fats Waller wrote, I keep pressing the wrong button, my program is another button. He wrote literally thousands of tunes, and only hundreds of them appear under the name Thomas Fats Waller. A lot of them appear under other names. Hoagie Carmichael, for example, bought music from Fats Waller. Duke Ellington bought music by Fats Waller. The Gershwins bought tunes composed by Fats Waller, and so on and so on and so on. He wrote an awful lot of these tunes for other people. Why would he do that and then let them use the name? Well, he sold these pieces of music to pay for his plethora of illegitimate children. Fats Waller was quite a character at all times of the day, and nobody really knows how many children Fats Waller actually had. I mean, he was married and he had official children under a marriage, Maurice being one of them. Maurice Waller was his most famous son, and Maurice Waller, who looks exactly like him, or did, he's not around anymore. Various interviews about Fats Waller where Maurice would sort of turn up and it just looked like a younger shaved Fats Waller. It was amazing. But there were probably hundreds of illegitimate children, and in order to pay all the alimony for all these various children around the place, he would sell tunes to famous composers for quite a lot of money. And tonight we're going to be playing one or two of them. I started the concert with one of them, My Very Good Friend the Milkman. That wasn't Fats Waller that wrote that, at least not officially. Who did write it actually officially? It was officially written by Harold Spina. Well, that sounds like mafia to me. Lyrics by Johnny Burke. Yeah, but it has all the telltale signs of a Fats Waller tune. Here's a lovely tune Fats composed himself back in 1929. If only he had taken note to the tune's title, he might have saved himself a lot of money and worry. It's a piece of music called Keeping Out of Mischief Now. Ouch. I tried doing one of my fancy, which you normally need a thumb for, and then I realized I can't do it, so I tried it with other fingers, and it kind of worked. Ow. Normally you do it with thumbs. Doesn't work without it. I normally do it as a 3-finger thing, but yes. For those who I don't know, I rather stupidly ratched my thumb through the cheese grater on Friday night and ripped a huge lump of my nail out right down to the nail bed and beyond. And on Friday night it was hell on toast trying to play a concert. Yesterday I played a church service, and our friend Heiko can vouch for this. I played most of it with just one hand and pedals because I didn't want to chance it there. Tonight it's slightly better, but problem is this is fine. If the side of my thumb is fine, and if I play really cleanly, that's absolutely not a problem at all. The problem, as soon as I'm going to do it with a flat bit of my thumb, but if I were to do that, yeah, bang the tip of my thumb into one of the black notes on the way past, it's like Vietnamese torture. I would be flying through the walls. That would not be much fun at all. So that's why I'm doing this, all right? That's why this is happening. Right, so there we are. Right, let me say hello to everyone in the chat, and then we'll go and take a little trip to the box office and see if people are chipping in tonight. If nothing else, ladies and gentlemen, out of sheer, what's the word we're looking for here? Out of sheer sympathy, if nothing else, the fact that I'm playing this concert at all should have you reaching for your wallets and saying, help yourself, to quote the Goon Show. Anyway, let's have a look and see who's here tonight first, and we shall continue. Right, I won't go all the way back to the very beginning. That would take far too long. So let's go back to French horn. That's our good friend Heiko. Hello, French horn. Thank you for being here. Computers are problems, says Robert Varner. Everything is a problem, Robert. It depends how you look at it. Alexander is here. Good evening, Alexander. Cam Platz is here. Hi, brother Cam. Xing Shang Shong is here. Good evening, Thomas. There's our Thomas for this evening. He's a big guy as well, but certainly nowhere near Fats Waller size. The Blue-Eyed Cat is here. Good evening, Blue-Eyed Cat. Desert 3 Michael. I think that's Michael. Is it not Michael Becker? Good evening that you are here too. Xing Shang Shong, there we are. Jeff is here, Jeff Ryle. Hello, Jeff. Lovely to see you. And thank you, by the way, for your tip that arrived the other day. Thank you very much, Jeff. Very kind. And also your email that went along with it. That one piece you mentioned, a nice simple sort of boogie bluesy thing. I'll work that in for you. Yes, we'll do that. Urza is here. Good evening, Miss Moneypenny. I hope you are well. Julian GC, already spotted you this evening. Hi there. There's Mike King. Hello, Mike. Johannes84 is here. Andrew Prince is here. Have we all got a foot fetish? There you are. Yes, Andrew, I think we do. It's all the people say, pedal cam, pedal cam, pedal cam. Put the pedal cam on. I'm not sure what they're enjoying so much about that, but never mind. Thesaurus Rex is here as well this evening. Good evening. Monica is here from Ohio. I could tell you some stories, actually, about other online organists who also play in socked feet, and the emails they get from certain people. Yeah, weird. Anyway, Monica is here from Ohio. Hello, Monica from Ohio. Bodensee is here. Hi, Ingo. Lovely to see you here. You started out about the foot size of FW, so they can. Yes, if I'd started out about something else, I suppose you'd have talked about that. Gerhard Flink is here. Good evening. Gerhard Flink, I think, has also left the chat, so sorry about that. Max Huber is here from Switzerland. Lovely, lovely. Who else is here? Opus 3 is here, but I spotted he's left us already as well. Right, who else have we got? Let's have a look. If you're in the chat and I haven't mentioned your name yet, say hi now and we'll get round to you. Must be some new names here. Where is everybody tonight? There's not many in the chat tonight. Tim is actually not here. It's merely an illusion. Am I? In that case, am I here? It's like Schrodinger's cat, isn't it? Am I here? What was that wonderful question? if a bear farts in the wood and no one's there to hear it, did it actually make a noise? Is an expression like that, isn't it? Something like that. Yellowbird is here. Good evening, my friend. Anonymous is also here. That's lovely. Ken is here. Ken Molden is here. Hi, Ken. I haven't seen you in the chat for an awfully long time. Lovely. Ken's here. That's nice. John Drake is also here. Now Ian Walker is here. Everyone's coming. Everyone's coming now. Oh, no, that's it. Okay, splendid. Well, if you're here, say hi in the chat. If you're new in the chat, tell us where you're from and what on earth you're doing here. And we shall move on to everyone else. Alexander, yes, we mentioned Alexander earlier. And there's everybody else. Splendid. Good. All the fun of the fair. Right, what's happening over at the box office this evening? Right, let's have a look. Who shall we start with? Let's start with... Ingo, our friend Bodense Horn, has put in a ticket to buy more plasters for the thumb. Well, let's hope not. I got hold of these are very good. These are these finger plasters that actually sort of go over the top and then wrap around there, and they're great and they're very waterproof, it would appear. This is a fresh one for the concert tonight, but they're great. They're really comfy. And you hardly notice it at all. So anyway, thank you very much, Ingo. That's very kind. I will put that towards some plasters. No, I won't. Maido. Hello, Maido. Maido is here from Estonia. Wow. Thank you, Maido. That's lovely. Thank you very much. Who's this? There's Andrew Prince. A ticket for the plaster on the thumb. Right. Sympathy is all round tonight. I like this. I can get used to this. Jan. Good evening, Jan. Sunday night is organ music night, says Jan. And I think someone else is there. Alexander. Thank you, Alexander, as well. That's very kind. And Stefan M as well, right at the very beginning tonight. Here's someone else who just joined us. Jörg from Switzerland. Get better soon. Thank you. It's very, very painful. That's all. It's fine. It's absolutely fine. Oh my goodness, Magic Mike the mechanic has joined us this evening. Yeah, lovely to hear from you, Magic Mike. I hope you're well out in Kansas land. Yeah, that's cool. Here, the joys of working with tools when you should be watching out for your fingers. The dangers of grating cheese. I almost removed my entire thumbnail on Friday night. Not much fun there. Thank you very much to all of you so far. Over on the wish list this evening, things have been added to the wish list. There's a story I'll tell you about that. I'll tell you later. I've been speaking to some other sample set producers, and they have been very helpful in making my life easier. We'll come to that shortly. This evening, ladies and gentlemen, let's say a big thank you to Max this evening, who bought a couple of cups of coffee, it looks like. Jeff Ford, who did something on the stripies. Thank you very much, Jeff. And the Platz gang over on the wish list, but I can't tell you what for. Thank you very much to all of you. And the main thing we're saving up for at the moment, believe it or not, is these new headphones. These chaps are only working out of one ear at the moment, this right ear. The left ear is not working. It's stopped. And that's most annoying because these things are exactly 2.5 years old. Half a year out of warranty. Planned obsolescence? Who knows? Most annoying. So yes, if you want to help out tonight, please consider here headphones so we can continue. I have no left thumb and no left ear tonight, which is kind of cute. Now, here's a piece of music that was not allegedly written by Mr. Thomas Fatzwaller, but it was. Don't drink and grate cheese. I wasn't drinking. I haven't had a drink for weeks. I was going to have a nice glass of wine tonight, actually, but do you know what? I didn't feel like it. What is wrong with me? So I'm just having water. No, maybe I should have been drinking and grating cheese. It probably wouldn't have happened if I'd had a good glass of wine or two inside me. Anyway, Fatzwaller. Here's an example of one of the tunes he wrote, but sold to somebody called Mr. Palmer. Now, I don't know who Mr. Palmer was, but I'm guessing Mr. Palmer was, I don't know, maybe an irate father or something like that. Anyway, Mr. Palmer got the royalties on this one. Now, we know it's a Fatzwaller tune. Various reasons. You'll hear why when I start playing it. But the words that went to it were written by his mate Andy Razaf. Now, Andy Razaf was a Madagascar prince. I think Madagascar. Yeah, he was an African prince, anyway, who made it to New York, and rather than live the high life as a nobleman from an African country,
He he lived the low down dirty life with all the jazz guys up in Harlem, and became very famous as a lyricist. He wrote wonderful words to all these tunes. I can't tell you what the tunes are here, but I can tell you that this tune used to be played by a band I played with for a while in Inverness. I don't think the band exists as such anymore. Certainly not in its original. Certainly not in its original constellation. I suspect most of them are dead, or some of them are. It was called the Ness River Rhythm Kings. Try saying that once you've had a few. And the Ness River Rhythm Kings used to perform regularly in the local theatre, lunchtime concerts, and I would go along as a young guy to hear these concerts. And the trombone player, a guy called Pat Strachan, one of the most wonderfully talented, beautifully eccentric, hilariously funny and lovable guys you'd ever want to meet. Pat was just wonderful. But like all musical geniuses, he had a perfectionist side to him, and if you didn't live up to the perfectionist side, then he would let rip, but quite rightly so. But no, Pat was a wonderfully lovable guy, and Pat and I always got on wonderfully well together. And at the end of this piece of music, he used to shout out some naughty words. And when I was there as a tender teenager, he felt guilty about shouting out those words, and he shouted out other words. And then one day I asked him, I said, what are the words you would have been shouting? And he told me, and I was so young and innocent, I didn't understand what he was talking about. Those days have changed. But anyway, yes, so innocent and young. This piece of music from 1928, Sweet Emmalina, it's called. Not Emmalina, Emmalina. Miss Sweet Emmalina. She goes to parties and stays till 4. Those are the kinds of words, yeah? So a nice girl who would go to parties and enjoy life with everybody. Anyway, here we are. I'll play the verse as well. I think I can remember the verse. The melody's great because it's just the circle of fifths. Listen out. Here's the verse first, though, if I can remember it.
Yes, they used to scream, "Get him off!" at the end of that tune, and I never knew what that meant as a young, innocent teenage boy from Inverness. Back in those days, Inverness was a very innocent place. At least in my household, it was a fairly innocent place. We were deliberately kept out of mischief, my sister and I. I'm not sure that was a good idea, because when I left home at the tender age of 17 to go to university, yes, I was one of those annoying little children. Off to university at the tender age of 17, and discovered that the opposite sex could do all sorts of things that I didn't know about. And yeah, kind of took over for a while. But those were the days. Those were the days. My roommate at the time, he came from Norfolk, which is just as isolated as Inverness, basically. And he, like me, he came from a very sort of sheltered upbringing and had no idea what the fairer sex was all about. To add to that, he went to a very fancy school as well, and I went to a nice school, but there was boys and girls there, so that's not the point. But this guy James, he went to one of those sort of Harry Potter style schools with just all, I think it was all boys in those days. I think it's mixed now. And he arrived in Edinburgh, and suddenly all these people around him. There was a wonderful girl who lived in my first year at university. It was his second year. He still stayed in halls of residence. Why am I doing it that way around? I should do it that way. Just take them off. Halls of residence. These big sort of I don't know, how many floors were there? 5 or 6 floors, halls of residences. Pollock Halls. Careful how you say that. Pollock Halls in Edinburgh at the university there. And I was in room 323 of Lee House. That was my room. And I can't remember what James's room was, but he was also on the 3rd floor, just in the other wing, as it were. And there was a delicious young lady, absolutely gorgeous lady, young girl who lived on that floor as well. And she was frightfully posh. She went to Cheltenham Ladies College. That's how posh she was. Edinburgh back in those days was where all the posh people went. Her real name was Catherine Anson. I'll never forget that. Catherine Anson. She was gorgeous. She was tall, brunette, beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. I loved Catherine Anson. I really did. Her nickname was Plum. And nobody knew her real name was Catherine. It was just Plum, and everyone called her Plum all the time. And I loved Plum. She was absolutely wonderful. She was slightly older than I was. Everyone was older than I was. I was only 17, for God's sake. But Plum was she was never more than a good friend, which was probably a good thing. She was way out of my league in those days. But anyway, yes, all the fun of the fair. Why am I even thinking about that now? Taking me back to, I wonder what she's up to now. Does anyone know Catherine Anson from Cheltenham Ladies College, aka Plum, who went to university in Edinburgh in the early 90s? Anyone? Anyone? Wonder what she's up to. It'd be great to find out, say hi. Having said that, I'm 52, she's probably 54 or 55, so do I want to know? Back in those days, James and I would meet on an afternoon basis. Now, James and I, very much from another part of the universe than the rest of the world, in those days certainly, we would meet every day, either in my room or in his room or in the common room, and we would have, I'm not joking, we would have tea and toast. And James was very particular about his tea and toast. He had a beautiful china teapot. He even had a knitted tea cozy thing that went over it. I suspect he himself, no, I don't think he knitted it. His grandmother probably knitted it. But anyway, never mind. He had this thing, and these wonderful, wonderful mugs. He had a mug with a duck on it, and I had, what did I have? I can't remember what my mug was in those days. He still has that mug. I went to visit James, well, it's about 10 years ago now. He still has that mug. He still drinks his daily tea from it. Absolute madness. Very eccentric, but absolutely wonderful. And we used to have, this was our ritual. After we had tea, of course, we'd start on the real stuff as well. But yeah, our ritual for the afternoon was tea for two, dedicated to our friend Joe Humans, because it was written by someone called Vincent Humans. Yes, it turns out A flat is not the most comfortable key to play in tonight, so I shall make a mental note of that and try to keep out of A flat. We have some new names in the chat. Sprinter Production. Oh, for buggery's sake. Printer, what's his name? Sprinter, sorry. Sprinter Productions has joined us. Ouch, cheese graters hurt. Yes, they do. Funnily enough, I didn't cook tonight. Vanessa cooked tonight. Good plasters, these. They work on here. They work on things. Very good. Who else is here? I spotted someone else is here tonight. Admiral Scharnhorst is here. 223, no, 323. Room 323 I was in. Mike says, behave yourself, Fraser. You have the lovely Vanessa. Well, when I was fantasizing about Plum, Vanessa wasn't even, well, she'd just been born. I went to university in 1990. Vanessa was born in 1990. There you go. So, I don't think she'd be too worried. I spotted another name there, but I can't find you now. Someone else has joined. František is here. Oh, my dear friend, František is here. That's lovely. Good evening to you, František. Why does it say 6910 after your name? Anyway, lovely that František has joined us this evening. Oh, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Actually, that reminds me. That's a good point to do some more anecdotes, but also some advertising for new stuff. Now, recently, if you've been paying any attention, recently I have moved from the world of Sibelius. Sibelius is a notation program that we always used to use, wonderfully professional program, very good. Now, it was taken over years ago by the same company that does Pro Tools, Avid or Avid or however you want to pronounce it. Generally translated to the word awful these days. Now, there was another professional notation program back in those days called Finale. And Finale was, you were either a Finale person or a Sibelius person. I was a Sibelius person. And Finale went down the tubes completely. Finale just disappeared off the face of the earth. It just stopped existing. And all the Finale users around the world panicked. And up jumped a bunch of guys from Steinberg. Steinberg is a famous music software company. They do things like Cubase, Nuendo, Wavelabs, all that kind of stuff. Very, 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 very good company. Steinberg actually got hold of some old Sibelius programmers and engineers and put them under their payroll, and they came up with a wonderful new notation program called Dorico, which is now in its 6th iteration. And it is now gradually becoming the professional standard even for publishers, because Finale is gone, Sibelius is crap, so Dorico is now fast becoming the real thing. So I'm using Dorico for all my stuff at the moment. It's great. It's quite interesting. It's not difficult to get used to. It's difficult if you've been using something else for a long time. It's quite difficult to get used to. But it does the same thing, but it just does it differently. So it all belongs to Steinberg. Now, the other day I was chatting to several different sample set producers, because as you know, I am still working on my first sample set, and I want it to be absolutely perfect. And I am tearing my hair out, literally, look at that bald patch there, literally tearing my hair out, trying to get this thing to sound perfectly accurate and authentic. And various parts of that process are driving me nuts, because I can't get it to do what I want it to do. So I reached out to some of these people and said, help, how do you do it? How do you get your samples to sound the way they do? How does it sound so natural, like the real organ? Because every time I do my denoising, or I do this or I do that, you can hear that it's sampled, you can hear all the clicks, and you can hear the digital stuff going on in the background. How did you do it? And while they're not telling me all their secrets, 3 of them did tell me that they are using a completely different piece of software to fine-tune the denoising of the samples. Now, there is a program I use. It's a professional standard. It's from a company called Isotope, which now belongs to Native Instruments. They're all buying each other out these days. A wonderful program called RX. And it magically removes background noise from everything. But in doing that, it removes too much of the natural noise as well, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, a musical note is made up of various different harmonics. Yeah, so if you have a blower noise of an organ in the background, making airy noise, that's quite a highish sound. Now, some of that sound is in that note. So if you remove the, you're also removing some of those frequencies as well. You know what I mean? So while on the surface of it, that might not sound like a problem. Once you've been processing things, it can become a problem, and you lose that authenticity, and things start sounding sampled. Does that make sense? So it turns out that this other program that Steinberg has, it's called Spectral Layers. That sounds kind of cool, doesn't it? It's called Spectral Layers, and it takes what RX does and takes it to an even finer, more granular level. What it does, it sort of gives you a sort of a 3D image of the sound. And you can look at it and say, right, that's the blower sound. Let's just remove that. And you can go in there with a digital scalpel, basically, and remove that. But you're not removing all the harmonics around it. It's incredibly clever. So having spoken to these guys, I decided to give it a whirl. There's a test version of it which runs for 2 weeks or something. It's bloody marvelous. It really is. So that is now on the wish list. Along with some new headphones, along with some more software. I'm using Dorico. If I'm going to start using this Spectral Layers, that's another Steinberg product. So why don't I join the Cubase world as well and have everything in one thing? I do all my video editing on something called DaVinci Resolve, and it does the works. It does the video, it does the audio, it does the effects, it does everything in one program. Color management, it's all in one program. It's wonderful. And if I could, you know, get everything in one suite, as it were, on the audio side of it for sampling and all that kind of stuff, that would just be so much quicker. At the moment, I'm using Adobe Audition to take my original samples and bring them up to a certain level, because the program I normally use, which is Logic on a Mac, it can do that, but it doesn't do it as cleanly. So I then transfer them to Logic, because that's what I'm used to using, and I chop them all up and do everything else in Logic. And so on and so on. And then I import the denoising software and do that. So there's at least 3 different pieces of software from 3 different manufacturers competing for computer time. Does that make sense? And if I could get it all under one hat, it might be a lot easier in the future. But first things first, headphones. Otherwise, I'm going to drive myself nuts. So anyway, there we are. Right, so that explains some additions to the wish list there. Those are my additions to the wish list. Those are not Vanessa's additions. They're mine. Jez on the wish list. Thank you very much, Jez. Very kind. Thank you. There you are. That's good. Right, if we all do that, if we all do what Jez just did, then we'll be done by the end of 2027. Thank you very much. That's A flat again. I'm not playing an A flat again. How are we doing for time? We're doing good for time. Here's another piece of music that Fats Waller did write. And there are 3 names to this tune, as far as I remember. It's Waller and Razaf, but there's another guy called Brooks in the middle. Now, we don't know who Brooks in the middle was, at least I don't think we do, but he is going to herald the start of theatre organ time this evening. We're going to leave, we were in Dusseldorf, by the way, on the wonderful Origo organ in Lambertus, Dusseldorf. We're going to leave there, head over to Foxyland, and have some Wurlitzer magic. Did Fats Waller ever play big Wurlitzer organs? He certainly did. He loved them. There's a recording somewhere of Fats Waller actually playing the organ in Radio City Music Hall in New York. And that would have been absolutely wonderful fun to have heard. Wouldn't that be amazing? Urza, thank you for putting the link up there. Let's see what happens. Here's a piece of music. Now, there was a very famous piece of music in the 20s called Sweet Sue, Just You. And it's about a nice little girl who did nice little things, and it's very sweet. Sweet Sue, Just You. Fats Waller and Andy Razaf took that idea and changed it to a girl from Savannah, Georgia, presumably, and they called it Sweet Savannah Sue. She was a very different character altogether. Sweet Savannah Sue, everybody. This is a cute piece. It's slightly reminiscent rhythmically of Honeysuckle Rose, which we'll come to in a bit. Sweet Savannah Sue at the key of B flat. Sweet Savannah Sue. Just you. No, it doesn't do that. Gosh. Admiral Sean Horst, can you play some Jackson Browne on the organ? Yeah, but not tonight. Tonight's Fats Waller, my friend. Tonight is Fats Waller, but definitely at some point. Sandra Elizabeth Ross, 5522, has joined us. Snow hit the ground. Where the hell do you live, Sandra? Snow already? Gosh. Wow. Let's have a soft, slushy Fats Waller tune. Yes, there are some. And they work beautifully on the ballad registrations I have for this organ here, which involve lots of beautiful tibia sounds. And I think we will have that beautiful, famous, the second most famous tune by Thomas Fats Waller, including the verse. Ain't Misbehaving. Again, no, it wasn't Ain't Misbehaving, sorry, that was Honeysuckle Rose. What am I talking about? Honeysuckle Rose, that was. His second most famous tune. Matt Leach has joined us from Northern California. Hello, Matt Leach. Lovely to see you here. Fats Waller night tonight, so all the fun of the fair over there. I hope you're well up in Northern California and having a whale of a time. Ladies and gentlemen, Jeff Ford has just been busy on the wish list as well. Thank you very much, Jeff Ford. That's very kind. Yeah, cool. Getting there slowly but surely. Let me quickly reload that as well. See what's happening. Nope, nothing new over there. Splendid. Right. On with the show. Now, we've had our handfuls of keys. We've had all the other kinds of stuff. What we haven't had is we haven't had a politically incorrect tune yet from our friend Mr. Thomas Fats Waller. Now, a lot of these tunes back in the day, you were allowed to title things in a certain way, you know. There was a tune called Shine where Louis Armstrong said, oh, thank you, Matt, that's very kind, thank you very much. There was a tune called Shine, which Louis Armstrong sung, just because my hair is curly, just because my teeth are pearly. You know, all that kind of stuff. You know, nowadays you wouldn't be allowed to do that. That would be classed as racist. But back in the day, you were allowed to do that kind of thing. And Fats Waller wrote this tune and gave it to his teacher, James P. Johnson. It's not actually by James P. Johnson, it is by Fats Waller, and it's basically the same chord structure as A Handful of Keys. That's one of the reasons we know it's by Fats. Wonderful stuff, yeah. It's a great piece of music. Now, the title has got nothing to do with the weather or the time of the day. The title of the tune has got to do with the what's the word I'm looking for? The guy who does this job, the occupant of this occupation. There you are. That would do. The piece of music in question is called Dusky Stevedore. What the hell is a stevedore? Here. Louisiana friend, do you know what a stevedore is? Does anybody know what a stevedore is? Dusky Steve.
Dusky Steve from 1928, I think. Yes, a couple of you got it right. He works on the docks. There you are, that's right. From memory, they used to work unloading ships on docks. That's right, and they were responsible for, you know, getting the ships in, you know, the log boats as well, log kinds of things. They had something to do with logging tradition as well. And Jez got it right there as well. The expression "sling your hook" comes from the work of a stevedore. That's exactly right. Well done. Well done, that man. You're all very clever. How many of you actually actually looked that up on Wikipedia, or how many of you actually knew that? That's the joy of the internet in this day and age. Yeah, lovely. Well done, though. You all got it very right. Now, Matt Leach was asking about a certain piece of music called Your Feet's Too Big. I'm not going to play that today, but I am going to play another one of Fats's comedy numbers. There was a wonderful tune he did, Matt mentioned it there, Your Feet's Too Big. Can't love you because your feet's too big. Down in Harlem, at a table for two, there were four of us, me, your big feet, and you. From your ankles up, I say you sure are sweet, but from there on down, there's just too much feet. Oh, your feet's too big, and on it goes. It's a wonderful song. Again, Fats Waller at his comedic best. But this is another great one that he wrote. I'm not sure who wrote the words to this one. It wasn't Andy Razaf, it was somebody else. But it's a wonderful piece of music along these lines. It's called All That Meat and No Potatoes. It goes on, just ain't right, like green tomatoes. A wonderful song. And it's one of the first pieces of music. This is from... It's quite late for Fats Waller. I'm going to say it's 1940. Maybe 41 even, but it's when Fats was just getting out of his sort of his you know, stride piano style and getting into the slightly bigger band style that he had towards the end of his life. He had a slightly bigger band, and he started getting into the music of riffs, yeah, which is a kind of a Count Basie kind of thing that was going on. And very simple riffs, and this piece of music is basically just an entire riff. You know what I mean when I start playing it. But it's very, very simple, and it's a great fun tune to just sit back and bop along to. All that meat and no potatoes. Oh, that made... Now, during that piece, I did something deliberate that Fats Waller did in one of his recordings. Fats Waller was a notorious alcoholic. An alcoholic! A notorious alcoholic, and he a lot of jazz tunes in those days, they're sort of in a certain form, 32 bars long, 8 bars, another 8 bars exactly the same, another 8 bars, completely different, and then the final 8 bars, the same as the first 2 8 bars, right? So there's this middle bit, and that's known as the middle 8, all right? So you've got 2 sets of theme A, as it were, and then you have a B section, the middle 8, and then you have your A section again at the end, and this middle 8 could be anything. It could be different chords, different key, anything. You know, it was always something different. But certain tunes had very similar middle 8s. For example, I Got Rhythm. This is all the A part. Let's repeat that. Now here's the middle 8. Circle of 5ths. And back to the A time. Which is extended in this case. Anyway, so that's the idea. Now, this song by Fats Waller, the A part is... repeat, and so on, okay? It just repeats this. Now the middle 8 actually goes... and then back to... okay? And Fats Waller, during one of his performances of this, got it completely wrong and went into the middle 8 of... the same as... I Got Rhythm. It doesn't matter. As long as you get back to where you're roughly going in the same place. Liam, you're joining us just as we're about to finish. Ladies and gentlemen, hang around. We're going to play one more tune, then we have a special birthday dedication, and then we're going to finish things up for tonight. So, final piece of Fats Waller music for tonight. It's called... it's a slow one. It's called Blue Turning Grey Over You, which is all about falling in love with someone who's buggered off. Blue turning grey over you. Now we have a birthday boy. It's gone midnight. It is now in this part of the world. Let me just make sure I'm getting this right. I am getting this right. It's Monday the 10th of November in this part of the world, which means it's the birthday of a very, very famous gentleman indeed. An honorary member of the Gartshore gang. He doesn't join us regularly over here, but I know that this will be passed on to him. It's his, I'm not going to mention numbers, but he's a gentleman of elderly status, let's put it like that now, and it's his birthday. For those of you in the American part of the world, you will recognize the name. He started out life as a Chicago DJ, and then he went on to become a very famous East Coast weatherman on TV. We are, of course, talking about our good friend, Mr. Ron Riley. And Ron has featured actually on the channel a few times. Ron has put in some dedications for us. Ron has been watching our stuff and been part of the gang for a couple of years now. Ron is very close friends with our friend Cam over in Maryland. Ron lives just up the road from where Cam is, and they see each other very regularly. And it's Ron's birthday today. So a huge happy birthday to the Ronster. And Cam, I hope you pass this on. Let's all sing happy birthday for Ron Riley. And that works perfectly. Happy birthday, Ron Riley. See, that works perfectly, so we can do that. Fun stuff. Sing happy birthday for Ron. Happy birthday to the Ronster. Have a wonderful day. I hope everything works out very, very well. And you go, I see Cam, you're going to go up and visit him, so that's good. Well, do say hi from the entire gang. Wish him all the best for his next year. All the fun of the fair. And Donald L., thank you very much for your last-minute ticket there tonight for new headphones and not for new thumbs. I will put it towards the headphone fund. Thank you very much indeed. Hopefully by next week I will have 2 ears again. So over to you, ladies and folks. I look forward to some help there. There's no excuse. I have to get some new headphones, so I'm just going to go and order them anyway. I think we're about halfway there on the wish list, but I'm just going to have to do it because otherwise I'm going to drive myself insane with one ear. I don't have my old headphones anymore. I had another pair of these, very similar, and I donated them. As a very kind and generous chap that I am, I donated them to someone who wanted good headphones and couldn't afford them, so I donated them. Thinking, once I've got these, nothing will go wrong. Made in Germany, eh? Turns out it doesn't work as well as it should have done. Let's finish off this evening's madness with a piece of music called, again, we're going to do the politically incorrect for this one, a wonderful piece called Down in Honky Tonk Town. And I think once again we'll dedicate this to Julian down in Louisiana, because Honky Tonk Town is, of course, New Orleans.
down in Honky Tonk Town. A piece of music played by Fats Waller many times, but not composed by him. What a way to finish. See you all very soon, ladies and gentlemen. We are continuing to post shorts on the channel. I don't know if you've noticed that. They're quite useful at getting, believe it or not, subscriber numbers up. Have you subscribed to the channel? A large percentage of you still haven't subscribed to the channel, which also means you can't communicate in the chat. You have to be a subscriber to be in the chat. You don't have to be a member, but you do have to be a subscriber to be in the chat. So yes, do consider that. It's free. Right, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for this evening. Thank you very much for joining us for our Fats Waller Jamboree. Now, it was going to be a completely different concert tonight, but because of this, there's absolutely no chance I could have played a classical concert tonight or anything along those lines. It had to be one of those concerts tonight where my brain was basically off, just playing sort of automatic tunes, as it were. It looks like hard work what I'm doing here, but I've been playing these tunes for hundreds of years and it's all automatic. It's great fun. I love it. And it means I can sit back and relax and not using my thumb to hit things, which I normally do. I'm normally a very violent player, but not tonight, you may have noticed. I had to behave myself tonight. A last minute wish list addition from Joe. Thank you very much, Joe. Thank you very much indeed. That's it, folks. Have a wonderful week. Ron, have a wonderful birthday. And we'll see you all very, very soon. Night, night, everybody.